No Box Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Nicolina, you founded Ballet North Texas in 2017, and since its inception, it has grown from 8 dancers and 6 performances to 17 company members, delivering 18 full-length evening performances. Congratulations.
Thank you.
To start us off, can you walk us through your journey as performing dancer and teacher up to founding Ballet North Texas?
That's a really long story.
Okay, give us your elevator speech version.
I grew up in the studio. My mom was a dancer. She also ran a company. So
a dance company?
Ballet.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I literally grew up in the studio. And I basically followed in her tracks dancing. I trained in Northern California under her school, and then I went to San Francisco, where I was at Lions Ballet.
Okay.
And then from there, I went to Europe, and I was dancing in Europe. And then I came back. I had met my husband, and I came back. He was in the military. So then we kind of traveled all over, and I freelanced for most of that portion of my career. And that's kind of how we ended up in Texas.
Were you originally from Dallas, or?
No, I'm originally from California.
Okay.
But I don't really claim California anymore because I've lived everywhere else longer than I ever lived in California. I left when I was 18 and haven't returned, so most of my years have been spent other places.
So then you said because being with your husband is in the military, that's what brought you here to Texas?
Yeah, we ended up getting stationed at Wichita Falls.
Okay.
I worked with a really great couple there at Wichita Falls Youth Ballet, and then was dancing, kind of still freelancing, but also dancing with a couple different pickup companies here in Dallas. And that's kind of what made me fall in love with Dallas. And then my husband retired from the military, and we had a choice of where we wanted to go. And I said, let's stay in Dallas.
Let's stay in Dallas. And so here you are. And so then what made you want to create Ballet North Texas, especially because there are other ballet companies that do exist in the area?
So at the time, honestly, let me start over. Really, it was all about opportunity and not being given the opportunities I wanted.
Tell me more about that. Because that's something I think a lot of dancers can relate to.
Yeah, well, especially like someone that's trying to break into choreography that is a female. It's just not very common, but it's becoming more common now.
Yeah, have you heard of Dance Data Project with Eliza? We had a podcast with her a few seasons ago, and the work she's doing to promote women in ballet is amazing.
Yes. So we were one of the first organizations to also submit our information to her data.
Oh, cool.
Too. So yeah,
I love that.
As soon as I heard about it, I was like, that is us.
Good for you.
So,
awesome.
But yeah, and so kind of what started it was I just wasn't being given the opportunities that I wanted. And so selfishly, I was like, well, then I will make my own opportunities. So that's really how the company came about.
What were the opportunities you felt like you weren't finding?
Well, at the time, I had already had 2 kids, and I had felt my body not really, I wasn't in my prime dancing anymore. And so I wanted to break into other avenues, and I liked teaching, and I really wanted to choreograph. And I was being given opportunities in student capacity to teach on choreograph on students.
Okay.
But I really wanted to kind of break into that professional realm, and I just nearly wasn't being given the opportunities. I was applying, and I was being passed up for other people that, frankly, I didn't feel like their credentials were comparable to mine, but they were men. And so that's kind of how it started. I just was like, well.
So it started with the desire to choreograph?
Pretty much,
would you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. I feel like same for me, not with No Box, but with my other organization, Mixed Emotus. I felt like, teaching in like academia and things like that, I was given so many opportunities to, you can set as many works as you want on students and things like that. But I really wanted to work with professional dancers. And so that's like why we started our organization too, so that we could work with dancers and create like the kind of work that we wanted to create.
Right, exactly. And then when it's kind of your own thing, then your own mind is your only box. Thanks.
The No Box Dance Film Festival, NBFF, is now accepting submissions for its 5th year as an independent film festival. NBFF seeks dance-related films that challenge the possibilities of what dance can look like in video form. NBFF has 4 categories for submissions: short series, general, documentaries, and kids. For more information on how to apply, visit filmfreeway.com/KNOW BOX Film Festival.
I want to hear more kind of about this like securing space thing, just from my own curiosity.
Yeah.
So like, did you like have a budget at the beginning, or did you fundraise before? I know like with like museums or like really big institutions, they do like capital campaigns, I think is what it's called, where they raise funds to match and things like that. Was that the story for you, or was it different?
I guess it was a little bit different. We were doing a form of a capital campaign, but it was also while we were already looking for a building. We knew we weren't going to build our own space, whereas a museum might have to build its own space. So the way it works is a little bit different. If you end up in more of like a strip mall and stuff like where we are, we're in a Kroger area. I mean, we have a beautiful facility that has all windows. I love it. But usually what will happen is you'll get a certain, what they were calling TI dollars, which are, I can't remember what it stands for now, but basically it's like a build out allowance.
Okay.
And so we weren't having to raise a capital campaign as much as somebody that maybe is trying to like actually build their own facility. We were just building on the inside of a building that already existed. And so they kind of gave us these TI dollars to then put towards what we needed. And that all, how much we got and how much we pay in rent was all negotiated for our awesome builder.
I'm glad you found that.
Yeah.
So I want to hear more. Did that include like things like all the mirrors that you have to buy for the studio space and like springing the floors and the Marley?
As long as you can fit that into your TI dollars, it could have, but we ended up having to actually fundraise outside for the Marley and the mirrors. The actual sprung floors, we were able to like squeeze all that in there. But we had to fundraise outside of that dollar for Marley, mirrors, equipment, sound equipment and bars and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so what was that process like, honestly? Like, if you were telling our listeners right now and somebody wants to go and start their own studio, what would you say to them?
It was really hard.
Okay.
Luckily, I don't even know where the support came from. It was really incredible. And it was like every time I turned around, there was somebody new coming into our organization, whether it was a student, an adult, a patron that came to see our show. It kind of felt very surreal in the sense that every time I wanted something or we knew we needed something, somehow it came about. It felt very much like fate.
So I feel like this is a great time to kind of segue into more of the business side of our conversation, although we've been talking about it already from the start. I'm wondering, if I'm a dancer who wants to start their own company, where do you think is the first place they should start?
Ooh, I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. I think you really have to have an idea of where you want to go with it. I knew that I wanted to choreograph, and when I say I wanted to choreograph, I mean I have a list a mile long of music, ballets, choreographers that inspire me. And so I knew that I had something to expand upon every time. And every time I choreograph, I find I can even expand more because I see how I can even change and grow as an artist on this side of things. To be able to see like potential in yourself is, I think, the biggest thing.
That's great advice. When you first started, did you have a business plan? I'll be honest first. With No Box Dance, we had an idea of our like long-term big goal. Our long-term big goal is we want to have our dance film festival on every continent. So that's like our big goal, but we did not have a business plan at the beginning. I'll say like just last year we started having like a strategic plan and we list out all of our goals and how we're going to meet them and things like that. Where did you start? Did you have something like that?
I would have to agree that it was very similar to you. I mean, you had the big dreams and then you're like, you know, there might be like a point X somewhere in between your big dream and you're like, maybe I'll get there.
More realistic goal for the next year.
But even then it was like far-fetched. So no, I wouldn't say I necessarily went in with a business plan, like a full detailed business plan. I wouldn't say that I did that until the conservatory was starting.
Okay.
Then we were finally like, well, if we're going to have a conservatory, I mean, and have to pay monthly rent, like dedicated monthly rent, we definitely had to form more of a business plan. But that was a year and a half after, you know, everything had already kind of started. So when we started, I didn't have a business plan. It was more like, where is a theater? Where are some dancers? I have this piece of music that I really love.
That's refreshing to hear. Makes me feel not so terrible about how we started out too. But I do think it really helps. I'm so grateful that we're at a point now that we do have a plan and we have our advisory committee and we're able to have these conversations about growth and measurable outcomes and things like that. And it really helps grant writing too, I found.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I feel like we're just now getting to that point as well.
What do you think are some skill sets that make a good leader in the dance world? And it sounds like you've grown up around dance leaders from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not taking the easy way out when you are faced with a hard decision, because sometimes that leaves other people in the dust. And I feel like as an artistic director, as an executive director, like everyone that is under my, under our organization is in my care. And so I could make decisions and then just throw everyone under the bus, but that's usually, to me, that's not the best decision. So I'll usually take the way that maybe is going to take more time, is a lot harder, but in the end, I feel like it'll benefit us as a whole, because if I'm supportive of everyone under the organization, then we're only going to get stronger as an organization.
I think that's a great mindset. And with that much responsibility, do you have like an example or a time that you'd be willing to share where you feel like you had to make that hard decision? I'm sure through COVID there was like every day.
Yeah, every day during COVID. I think the first one was, honestly, it was during COVID. We had just started rehearsals for our Cinderella. And all of our dancers are contractors. So technically, if the work doesn't get done, then they don't get paid, kind of thing.
Okay.
We don't have necessarily employees.
They're not full-time.
Yeah, salary. They're not full-time salary employees. I mean, goals. It's still part of my goal.
You'll get there.
But at the time, it was contractors, and our show was canceled. I mean, and crazy enough, it was canceled, and we were the last to find out about it.
Oh, no.
They didn't even call us. It was crazy. Anyways, but I had to make the hard decision of, do I continue to pay the dancers, or do I pay our rent that we were just kicked out of our building? Not kicked out, but nobody was allowed to go anywhere.
Right.
And we just made the decision that we were going to continue to pay the dancers, and we would just figure it out afterwards. And so that was probably one of the first really hard decisions. I mean, it wasn't a hard decision to say that I wanted to pay them. That part was easy, but it was knowing, okay, well, that money is going to be gone, and we don't know the next time we're going to be able to earn money to then pay the rent that we were going to be obligated to pay. So it was very that was a difficult decision to make, but I feel definitely like I made the right one.
That's challenging, but it shows, like, as a leader, to keep reinvesting back in the people, because that's what continues to grow the organization. Did everything end up okay?
Yeah, I mean, we're here.
Yeah.
No, we were really fortunate, and we have had, like I said, we just, every time we've needed support, it's just somehow shown up, which is amazing. I cannot thank our donors, even just our volunteers.
No Box Dance is now on Patreon. Gain access to our community resources, early access to Dance Behind the Screen podcast episodes like this one, membership in our creative book club, personalized dance film feedback, and more. Visit patreon.com/KNOWVOXDance to select the membership level that is right for you.
So how do you approach networking? Because it could be similar to kind of how you might think about your donor base or your supportive patrons, people who keep coming back to you. How do you think about networking, and who are you networking with?
Well, I guess when we first started, networking was just like go to all the things and meet all the people and make sure that they know who we are. Part of it was just getting our name out there. That was my first goal, was just so that people were like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of them. Even if I got that reaction, I'd be like, great.
That awareness.
Yeah. And so even through a lot of COVID, that's what I was pushing for. And any sense of networking was just make sure that somebody, at least they recognize our name. That I felt like was a win at that point.
I'm wondering if you could talk about some transferable skills that artists can take from their careers as dancers or dance teachers that might apply to their entrepreneurial approach of founding their own company.
I would definitely say discipline and, dance you have to have tough skin to be a dancer. And so I've definitely taken that into the business side of things. Not that I don't necessarily take no for an answer, but I usually will still try to find another way around it. And I don't let things deter me in a way. With dance, sometimes the thing goes perfect the very first time. And sometimes the step you have to sit there, it could be like the tiniest thing, and you just have to sit there and keep working at it. And then it never, maybe once it'll feel like, oh, I did it perfect. But I think that kind of attitude of keep going definitely has transferred into business. I mean, I definitely could have just walked away at COVID, but like I said, I had a sense of responsibility for everyone under the organization too. But I would say that it was my dance training that gave me the strength to really push through that, because that was really hard for us.
And I think that discipline is something that it's helpful to be reminded of the benefits of the discipline. Because I think sometimes as a dancer, it can be frustrating, how disciplined the training is. Mm-hmm. But it's great to see how it can kind of transform outside of the studio into everyday life, into building now your amazing company and conservatory. It's really cool to see. Do you think social media is influencing the dance world? And if so, is it influencing your work?
I definitely think it's influencing the dance world. I mean, the access to material is unreal. I mean, you could look up anything. I mean, there's videos of Anna Pavlova now, all grainy and everything, but you can still something that if YouTube didn't exist, you might never see. So I think that is incredible. And I definitely think it's influenced me as an artist, because I've been able to watch so many things. And I have to say that I do a lot of watching. Whether it's good or not, I don't know, but it definitely has an influence because of that. Being able to just, somebody mentions a ballet and I'm like, oh, I've never seen that. Just get on YouTube and you can at least find an excerpt of it and get an idea of what it's about.
How do you say no to the box? This is our tagline here.
That's a good question. I mean, I don't let ballet necessarily define what I end up putting on stage, I guess would be the best way I could put it. I still work within the realm of classical ballet personally because that's what I know, but I don't necessarily let it define what ends up on stage. We did a really great piece called Pigeons in the Park, and it was a friend of mine that choreographed it, and I brought him in. He originally choreographed it on me forever ago. And then I had him come back in, and it's completely different now than what it was, but he just restaged it. And it's, I would say, bringing that was definitely outside the box. It's dancers being birds, which doesn't seem like Swan Lake, you've got all these birds all the time, but it was pigeons, which are more, they're just a little bit more raw.
Mm-hmm. People don't typically think pigeons are like beautiful ballerina.
Yeah. And the movement itself, while there were still some aspects of ballet in it, were definitely, I mean, it was definitely outside the dancers' boxes as well. And so it was really exciting to see that kind of come to stage. And I would say me bringing that, even though everyone thinks, oh, it's ballet in North Texas, it's always going to be ballet, but then, bringing something like that to stage is, to me, it's outside the box. Maybe to somebody else. I thought it was really ingenious, and it was a beautiful piece that actually has like this kind of dark comedy to it. So it was a really fun thing to watch.
And you did share some videos of that piece, so we'll have to include a little bit of it. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can check it out. Okay, to close, we have our Flash 4 segment where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash. Are you ready?
Okay,
as fast as possible. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be? Book, podcast, to follow?
Oh gosh, YouTube.
I don't know. That's great. What was the first dance you saw?
Probably the Nutcracker, but it's hard to say.
Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
Yes and no.
What is your favorite social media platform?
Oh, that's hard because I have love-hate for all of them. I would say YouTube, probably, for dance, not for all the crazy stuff that's on there.
Well, thank you so much, Nicolina. I really enjoyed our conversation, hearing how you've been able to blaze your own path and what you've created with Ballet North Texas is truly inspiring. As an emerging artist myself, it's really cool to see what you created, especially in spite of COVID. Like, it's really amazing the growth that your company has had and just like the dedication you've had. And I appreciate your openness and honesty on our show and giving us the behind the scenes of everything that you've gone through.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, and before you leave, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't talked about today?
I don't know. I feel like we touched base on a lot of stuff. So, I mean, in the sense of, whether you're looking to start a company or not, just know it's lots of hours and you really have to love all aspects of the dance. But it's also really rewarding and really fun. So I don't discourage it.
How can our listeners stay connected with you and Ballet North Texas?
We are on all the social medias. So Instagram, Facebook, you can visit our website, balletnorthtexas.org.
You're on TikTok?
We are on TikTok. I don't know how that's going, but we'll see. Or you can just come to the theater.
I love that. So if you're in Dallas, make sure to come to your next show. When is it? You said in May?
Yeah, it's May 5th through 7th at Moody Performance Hall.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Nicolina.
Thanks.
Dance Behind the Screen podcast is produced by No Box Dance, an art service organization that creates, collaborates, and discusses art with artists and the public. Dance Behind the Screen podcast is co-hosted by Azaria Hogans,
Raina Mondragon, Martheya Nygaard, and Yejin Choi, with sound design by Daniel Rosas.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.